Hi, my name is Lucy Almao, and I'm going to do my species presentation on the Neophocana phocanoids, more commonly known as the finless porpoise. So the finless porpoise belongs to kingdom Animalia, phylum Chordata, and class Mammalia. They belong to the cetacean order. There are two subspecies of cetaceans, the odontocetes and mysticetes. Odontocetes are classified as having teeth, while mysticetes, on the other hand, have baleen instead of teeth and are often filter feeders. The finless porpoise is an odontocete, which means it has teeth. The family the finless porpoise belongs to is the Phoconidae. I apologize for butchering names. The genus and species are the Neophocanae phocanoids. So there are three different kinds of finless porpoise that we know of. The first one is the finless porpoise found in the Indian Ocean, which is called the Neophocana phocanoids. The second one is found in the West Pacific Ocean. It's the finless porpoise Neophocana phocanoids sunnameri. These two are found in seawater or saltwater oceans. The narrow-ringed finless porpoise Neophocana phocanoids Asia orientalis is found in the Yangtze River, which is a freshwater river. So next we have some physical characteristics of the finless porpoise. First of all, it is the only porpoise that lacks a true dorsal fin. Instead, they have a long, narrow ridge along their backs, which is covered in thick skin and little things called tubercles. This creates an anti-slip surface along their backs. This is actually important because mothers tend to carry their babies along their backs as they swim. We will get more into that later. Some finless porpoises can grow to be 2.27 meters in length, with decently large flippers, and are usually light gray in color. However, some species can also become a much darker gray. As you can see in the bottom picture, they are much darker color than the finless porpoise on the right. So the first two types of finless porpoises that we talked about are saltwater finless porpoises that can be found along the shallow coastal waters of the Indian and Western Pacific Oceans. The Yangtze finless porpoise, on the other hand, are found in freshwater in the middle and lower regions of the Yangtze River in China. Finless porpoises prefer shallow waters and places like mangroves, estuaries, large rivers, and shallow waters a little further from the shore. These maps, the one on the left is a picture of the Yangtze River. Finless porpoises tend to be found in the middle and lower regions, which would be around the middle of the map and to the right. The saltwater finless porpoises are found on the map to the right, meaning they can be found in the shallow waters along the blue area. Okay, so finless porpoises tend to be opportunistic feeders. They like to eat crustaceans and cephalopods, but have also been known to feed on shrimp, squid, cuttlefish, and octopus. Not much is known about the seasonal changes in diet for the finless porpoise. However, we do know that some finless porpoises that like to reside in estuaries, mangroves, and rivers have also been known to ingest certain plant material on the floor of the water that they live in. Typical behavior for the finless porpoise in Chinese and coastal waters and the Yangtze River, finless porpoises are generally found in groups of about 3 to 6. In Japanese waters, these groups are usually smaller and tend to be actually in pairs, usually consisting of a mother and her calf. Finless porpoises are not known to migrate, however, there is very little data to support this. Finless porpoises are known to be very shy. This is why their groups tend to be pretty small. Their behavior tends to be not as energetic or showy as that of dolphins, which also suggests that they are shy creatures. Yangtze River finless porpoises are known, however, to leap from the water and perform tail stands, where they kind of dance on the surface of the water using their tails to stand up. It's quite the spectacle to watch, but this is actually a rare occasion, and this is why I couldn't find any pictures on finless porpoises performing tail stands, unfortunately. I'm sorry. So, breeding for the finless porpoise occurs in late spring and early summer. The young are born in the spring, summer, or winter, depending on the geographic location. Mothers tend to carry their offspring on a patch of skin on their backs. This is what the tubercles and the rough patches of skin are for on their backs, hence also why they do not have a dorsal fin. Females tend to feed their young by producing high-fat milk from their mammary glands. The typical gestation period is about 10 to 11 months for finless porpoises. Males reach sexual maturity at 4 to 6 years of age, while females reach their sexual maturity around 6 to 9 years of age. Calves are typically weaned from their mothers around 6 to 15 months, and some finless porpoises have lived up to 33 years of age. However, they typically only live to be about 20 to 25 years old. So the ICUN Red List listed the finless porpoise as vulnerable in 2012. Threats to the finless porpoise include getting tangled in fishing / gill nets. However, their primary threat is actually environmental degradation. Deforestation of mangrove areas and harbor expansion are a huge threat to the finless porpoise's environment. In addition, there is a form of fishing called electrofishing, where fishermen will put an electric current through the river of where the fish or porpoises or whatever the creatures they're after are. This electric current will go through the water and actually stun the animals that they are after temporarily, while fishers will go after and kill the animals that they are after. I believe it is illegal, however, I'm not 100% sure. I just know that it's terrible and should not be allowed. Next, pollution and dams also pose a threat to finless porpoises in their environment. Finless porpoises are not typically consumed by humans. However, there was a history of this in Japan. For a while, they actually killed porpoises to consume their meat. However, it is believed that this no longer exists. So there is not a really well-established estimate of the finless porpoise's abundance in numbers. However, the ICUN Red List has shown a decline in population and distribution over several decades. Local conservation groups in Korea are campaigning for the protection of the species, and the finless porpoise was declared an endangered species along the southern coasts of Pakistan in the Arabian Sea. The finless porpoise has a high degree of interaction with humans because they remain in such coastal waters close to the shores. They have been protected since 1930 and are included on the Appendix 1 of the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species, and are also included on the Appendix 2 of the Convention on Migratory Species. And actually, the recent extinction of the Yangtze River dolphin was actually a very big catalyst that raised awareness about the extinction of other river species such as the finless porpoise. On the bottom left is a map that shows conservation sites all along the blue area where finless porpoises can be found, and each number represents a conservation station dedicated to saving river species. So that's everything I have for you guys about the finless porpoise. Here are my references, and I hope you enjoyed watching. Bye!